Hi all, thanks for joining. If you're listening to the recording, sorry you couldn't make it live, but we're glad you're listening now. If you have forgotten, I am Marnie Stockman from Lifecycle Insights. So the invite went out to everybody that we met last week at Robin Robbins Technology Marketing Toolkit boot camp. And so, we invited folks that we had chatted with and said, we help you to deliver the QBR your customer deserves. So, feel free to join us and I'll walk through a more in-depth demo. Many of you got kind of a 5-minute version. So my thinking is I'll go through probably 20-ish minutes and then I'll take questions. You can ask questions along the way. This will be fairly informal. I always say I'm Italian, so I don't consider it interrupting. I consider it participating. I do have major allergy season going on, so if I jump into a coughing fit, you'll have to excuse me. I'm trying to fight that off. And I am showing Lifecycle Insights now. So Mark is with me from our team, Mark Ignacio. He is in the chat, so he can answer any questions along the way and put links in links in the chat as need be. Again, feel free to come off mute and just shout out questions or put them in the chat and we'll cover as we go. So as we talked about last week, again, we're aiming to help you deliver a quality and strategic business review. When it comes to QBRs, I always say I'll stop saying QBRs when folks stop Googling QBRs, but we know not everybody needs one quarterly, so we could just say the Q stands for quality business review, and we'll be good to go from there. We can keep calm and carry on. So that's kind of our take on that. So welcome to Lifecycle Insights. One of the things Lifecycle Insights does is we start with a primary integration. So for better or worse, we have our partners start with a primary source of truth for companies, contacts, and assets. For many, it is their PSA. We integrate with ConnectWise Manage, Autotask, Halo, Synchro. For others, we find the primary source of truth is IT documentation platform. We integrate with IT Glue or Hoodoo. And we also have a wild card, we integrate with Ninja RMM. So the reason we force a single source of truth is because we're looking for the one place where we have an inventory of your assets so that we can monitor there and make sure everything's funneling into one place. We pull that over and then we do warranty lookups on Dell, Lenovo, HP, Microsoft Surface, Cisco, Meraki, and SmartNet. What you're looking at right now is our dashboard. So this dashboard is for a single client. So you can see I have creative designs here. I can switch to Get Well Medical Services and it'll update based on what is in their records. I've got headlines on the right-hand side, and as account manager, customer success manager, or a VCIO, this will really give you actions that you can take on this particular company's data. You have an assessment that you need to run. You've got a business review coming up. There are some expired contracts you might want to look into, etc. So more on that as we walk through it. The end goal of Lifecycle Insights, as I mentioned at the beginning, is to help you deliver the QBR your customer deserves. So I will have Mark put in chat the PDF to the output. Many of you picked a copy of this up last week. It was the spiral bound book that was on our desk of what the business review looks like. But if you wanted to share with your team some sample output of what that could look like, I will have him put the link in the chat. So we've pulled over your company's contacts, assets. We've done warranty lookups, and we give you an asset lifecycle management report. Some features of reporting in Lifecycle Insights is you'll notice the color swatches, we call them, over top of the columns. So we've got typical stoplight reporting where red is bad and green is good. And I can swatch away, so blue is typically unknown. I can swatch away the colors I'm not interested in. So I'm over this operating system column and I'll swatch away the blue, green, and yellow. And now I have the 7 assets that have expired operating systems, or 6. I can quickly grab all of these and choose to take an action on them. I'm going to create a recommendation from them. And you can see all of those assets have been attached along with a replacement cost. Some things folks often ask me is, well, I know how you got the purchase date, but how do we get an end of life date? We have default settings for the different asset types to say workstations are going to last for 4 years and servers for 10 or whatever that may be, that you can customize. You can customize them for globally across all of your clients. You can adjust a single company, and you can always update a single asset. Same thing with replacement costs, right? We know folks all over the world have very different costs of what a new server might be, and you can adjust those as well. So I'm going to close that for now, but just keep in mind recommendations I was able to build from here. I'm going to move now to the user list. So same type of reporting. Now we're matching up your users that are in your primary integration along with Microsoft Graph API. So here I can ask questions. My demo site's connected to ConnectWise Manage. I could say who's not in my PSA that is in Microsoft 365. I can see what licenses they have. It turns red if they haven't logged in over 30 days and red if MFA is disabled. So we find a lot of our partners struggle actually to build this report. We typically hear cobbling together and Excel spreadsheets when we talk about this. We also have several secondary integrations that you can add. We have 3 cybersecurity phishing training tools integrated in the platform. So we have Breach Secure Now, Know Before, and Fin Security. So if you used any of those, we could add the columns right into the report. And so here you could see a Breach Secure Now user, what their latest employee security score is and their phishing fail rate. While I'm on the topic of that, I'm going to jump to more reports, and you'll see other columns that we could add into this particular report, because we also have integrations with Augment and Saslio. If you were there last week, Augment was giving away the sword. So if you saw the person in kind of chainmail with a sword, that was Augment. We have an integration with Smileback for CSAT. We are also developing an integration with Crewwho as we speak. We have an integration with Ticketing Dashboard, so you can get a high-level summary overview of your tickets. And then we also have the Microsoft Secure Score reporting, so it's their assessment that you can add to reports. Now, I'm going to start with going through each of the reports individually down the left-hand side of our platform. But the goal is for you to say, I want my business review to include these 4, 10, 7, 6, whatever reports, to create a single template. So you can just hit a button and repeat that template over and over again. So you build the business review you're interested. So just because I have 10 reports doesn't mean you want to show all of them, which is totally fine, right? Every MSP has their own secret sauce, and that's important to keep in mind. I'm going to click on contracts next because I'm going through all of the automation of Lifecycle Insights before I get through the more manual components of it. So for contracts, if you are a ConnectWise Manage or an Autotask partner, we can import your agreements, additions, or contracts into this portion of the module. We can also allow you to add a third-party contract. Our goal for this is to help you drive a full budget forecast for your partners. So we have many folks that say, well, I always like to take quotes on the projects I'm hoping to sell them. But if you think about what that feels like for your partner, that means that every time you're coming to have a conversation or do a business review, they assume you're coming to sell them something because all you're coming to present are quotes. We believe if you are projecting a full budget forecast for your partners, it's a much more strategic conversation. They're much more inclined to have a discussion if we had already had a 3 to 5 year budget for a couple of years and you'd already talked about the 2 servers that are coming due next month, right? We're not surprising them with anything. The other piece is in a full budget forecast, we want to go above and beyond what they're paying your MSP. If you think about it, they're paying you some monthly recurring revenue, say $3,000 a month. And they think of that, even though we know they're on managed services, they're still thinking of technology apart from their business as a break fix option, right? All of those projects just feel like a very break fix mode because they're surprised by it. When they realize that their printer copier services, phone services, ISP providers, cybersecurity liability insurance, their line of business applications, when they realize all of those pieces are technology as well, they realize the bigger idea that technology is in fact running their business. It's a part of their business, not apart from their business. And managed service providers are uniquely situated to be able to drive that budgeting conversation. You are the only ones that have all of the information around end of life, your contracts, and recommendations that you're going to make along the way. So it only makes sense that you would be the ones to deliver a budget forecast for your partners. So what I have on the screen is the place where our partners manually enter their third-party contracts for their clients. One of the things about Lifecycle Insights is that you can set up security groups to allow partners to log in to Lifecycle Insights. So some of our partners even set up groups where their clients actually come in and update their own contracts in the platform. You can control what page they read or read right in, so they don't have to see all the things. But in doing that, when they enter their contracts, all of that information lands on the budget forecast. So we've got assets when they come end of life. We've got any recommendations that you build for them. And we've got all of their third-party contracts.
Sorry, can I stop you real quick if that's possible?
Absolutely.
On that piece for the client login, what would they get access to see? Because I can see that being very useful.
Yeah, so you can control every single one of these menu items down the left-hand side and say, I want them to see that menu item or not. The other piece is, because I get this question a lot, you can control what they see on this dashboard. So there are a lot of tiles that I didn't scroll through on here. And you might say, I really want them to see report locker. I don't want them to see a huge tech debt number. You can just turn off those tiles for them. So many of our partners, and what's interesting is I would say the first place we saw folks really utilizing this is with co-managed. So if you've got an internal IT person that you're working with, they're going to need to know when assets are getting replaced, right? What users have access to what. So this is a great way for them to have that where you don't have to constantly run reports. Just think about all the time that saves you right there. The other place is when there are enterprise partners that have, they're accustomed to seeing these types of things, or frankly, some of us small business owners are control freaks like myself, and I would just want to have access to it so I could see for myself. So you can control any item down the left-hand side, read or read-write access to.
Do you see this as replacing some of the features of things like Bright Gauge?
Absolutely a possibility. So many of our partners had used historically the Bright Gauge report for kind of the high-level ticketing piece. So it is very possible. We certainly have a list in our queue of additional reports that we'll be delivering. So we are more than happy to take suggestions and feedback from our partners of like what other types of views would you like to see along the way. One of the things that we haven't built yet, but we are talking about is kind of adding an SLA report. What we want to stay out of is like every single ticketing report, because we know that the SLA, one of our partners calls it the service level argument discussion, which is not what we want to get you into, right? We want to keep you at the strategic. But if there are strategic reports in Bright Gauge, we have had partners that have said like, oh, if we can build this, we can move away from that. So just let us know what you're interested in there for sure.
And we currently with ScalePad.
Mm-hmm.
So
yep. We are too now.
So how do we, is that something that we have to discuss with you if we wanted to try and move from ScalePad to Lifecycle Insights?
So we just got acquired by ScalePad, and because we have overlap, we only have overlap in that warranty lookup piece. So we don't sell third-party warranties. We don't do the asset disposal. We don't have warranty assurance, et cetera. So what we have told partners until we build it all into one platform is that we'll give a discount if you need, you want, yes, the QBR piece and the warranty asset component as well. So you should have a PDM. If you don't, I can find out who it is for you. And then we would work on the discount that you would get for having the two tools. So for sure. And even if you're not currently a ScalePad partner, if folks are interested in, like I said, asset disposal, warranty assurance, we can connect the dots on that one to get that discount. So part of this budgeting piece, we have a few different views. Our partners typically deliver two things. One, a 12-month line item. This is every single asset contract project that we're going to do for you so that they know exactly what's going to be happening, but also a 3 or 5 year budget. You can build out this monthly, quarterly, or annually for up to 12 cycles. And with a 3 or 5 year budget, you're really helping your partner say yes to meet with you the next time, because you're not going to blindside them every time, because you've already talked about what's coming down the road for the next 3 to 5 years, right? The other piece is you can avoid conversations like, guess what? Surprise, 2 servers are end of life today. So just get out your checkbook for $20,000 and we should be good to go. Nobody wants to have that conversation. You don't want to have it. They don't want to have it. But to be able to project that in a budget forecast allows you to, 1, give them advance notice so they can budget for it. And 2, you could start talking about things. Okay, so we see that you've got a couple servers coming due in a couple years. Is this a good time to start talking about cloud services? And maybe we'd like to turn some of those capital expenses into operating expenses and leveling out costs. If you think about what that means in terms of strategic partnership, they definitely start looking at our partners differently when they realize you're kind of helping drive that full budget forecast conversation for them. So that's the automation piece of Lifecycle Insights. I'm going to jump to assessments now. Always happy to come back. Oh, let me check chat and see if those are questions. We do have ticket integration for Autotask, Brian. So we can grab that. Yep. And Mark put that in the chat. Yes, yep. We cannot, we report on the tickets, and we also have the ability to open tickets in both Autotask and Manage. So you can create tickets from here. We know in ConnectWise, they say if it didn't happen in ConnectWise, it didn't happen. So I'm sure Autotask would like me to say the same thing there. If it didn't happen in Autotask, it didn't happen.
So you can have like summary items and things that need to be addressed from the meeting and then do a quick ticket open at that point.
That's exactly right. Yep. Any of the recommendations that they've accepted, you can just kick it over to a ticket and it'll populate it with the information. Yep. So next I'm jumping into assessments. Now I talked to many of you last week. I heard 3 different things. 1, we're already using a tool like this for sales. Can we replace that? 2, we're using a platform for assessments. Can we import our assessment? 3, we ask these questions, but we don't really have an assessment. So there are 3 ways we can handle that. That's convenient. You had 3 strategies, and so did we. So if you're using another tool for this, we absolutely can import your assessment into our platform. We have a lot of folks moving over from either Audit IT or True Methods that are able to import their questions. Some folks say, I've just got questions of our own in an Excel spreadsheet. That's fine. We can import them from CSV. And then the other piece is, well, I don't really have an assessment yet. I'd like to see what you've got. So we have a whole library of assessments, and you can import all of them. You'll just come over on the right-hand side and click them and take a look and add them to your site. And then they're editable. So the majority of partners that don't currently have a default assessment use ours and edit it to make it align to your stack. So if you're a Sonic Wall shop instead of a Sofo shop or a Meraki shop or whoever, you can edit it to be aligned to your standards. I'm going to show you what one of those looks like. So after you've defined your assessment, right, written the test as though you were a teacher, you can score it. So not surprising here, right? The scoring is stoplight reporting here as well, red, yellow, green. So you just click on the radio buttons to define where the risks are. You can add public comments, right? This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. As part of the assessment creation piece, you can add scoring instructions and explanation remediation tips. We have over 900 partners, and one of the things that folks struggle with is, how do I take my QBR process and scale it past a single person, right? Whether it's the owner who's been doing it all themselves, or I've just hired my first account manager, or I've just hired my second one, and it's all in somebody's head. To be able to put this in the scoring instructions and the explanation remediation tips helps you define a consistent process. It also helps you take some of the work of scoring this off your most expensive engineer's plate. So by putting scoring instruction tips in here, we have one of our partners who gets an intern. They get 2 interns every fall from the local community college cybersecurity program. And those interns learn how to follow the scoring instructions and lifecycle insights to score the assessment based on the links that they put in there. So if you start thinking about that a little differently, right? If your engineer had 3 more hours a week, what would they be doing with it? I suspect you're not thinking, oh, I don't have anything for them to do, right? If you are, well played. But most folks are saying, yeah, if we can find ways to manage our resources a little differently and make them more effective, that would be great. So that's what the scoring instructions and explanation remediation tips do. You can add private comments. So maybe you do have 7 questions tagged for an engineer, and an engineer needs to come in and answer them. They can add private comments, tips to the VCIO. I would recommend this, or, hey, we saw this, you might want to point out X, Y, or Z. And then you can also show previous responses. So if you've done owner-led sales and you've gone through and scored an assessment and you hired your first account manager, when they come in here, they're going to be able to see how you scored it and what comments you made. So it's a great way, really. We're a process-oriented industry, but a lot of the human elements have not been process-oriented. So this is going to help you do that. Now, once you have scored an assessment, if you downloaded the QBR your customer deserves, you can see we give a high-level report, right? CEOs of small businesses are typically competitors, and they're curious why they've got some red. So they're going to ask you, what are we going to do to solve this security problem I have? The report that our partners like to share is this comparison report, or what I like to call the "what have you done for me lately" report. You could say, all right, last quarter when we met, as we onboarded, you were at a 40%, but since then we've moved the needle and you're at a 72%. We still have some aged servers and things that we need to talk about to continue to move the needle. We need to implement cybersecurity, phishing training, etc. But you can see what we have already done for you recently. These last 2 reports that I just showed, if you're interested in using this on a prospect, these are free. So you can do assessment only for those 2 assessment reports, because we believe if you do these assessments, you'll grow your business. They will turn into a long-term customer, and you'll move them to the VCIO side of the house as part of the paid subscription.
So do you think that this is something that we could use to replace audit IT?
That's where most folks are replacing it, yes. My business partner was an MSP, and he used to use audit, and when we built Lifecycle Insights, he stopped. The other advantage is that by starting putting your data in Lifecycle Insights, when they become a customer, the data is already there, and you don't have that sales to CS handoff where sometimes things get dropped, right? Like sometimes that just takes a lot of reconfiguring, but really if it's in the data's in the same place, it's easy to just make that smooth transition.
And do you have any integration to things like rapid fire tools?
We don't have any with rapid fire tools. So many of our partners, so that's another one of the tools that my business partner used. That 700-page report is certainly not something we want to deliver, right? Like, what CEO wants to go through that and look at all those alerts? But most folks are using that report or something like it, a Cyber CNS or a Galactic Scan or whatever, to answer, okay, like these 7 things mean I've got to put this at risk. So it's not that we deliver it in that way. It is you use it to inform the assessment. Once you have scored the full assessment, and this is for folks in the VCIO side of the house, so not for prospects at this point. Once you've scored the full assessment, we can look at the item details. So this is every single item and what we scored, right? What's red, what's yellow, etc. And this is where I think the power of the MSP comes to play, because I can go and grab 3 at-risk items, 7 at-risk items, 10, whatever, and build a recommendation. And so from here, I can say, okay, this is the business pain that my customer cares about. I can add labor, material, recurring costs, etc. But I can also add those assets that are causing the problem. The problem is you've got Windows 7 machines, etc., right? That could be the issue. Once I build this recommendation, it lands on my recommendation roadmap. And here is drag and drop Kanban style, where I can move the recommendations around and it automatically updates the budget. So what our partners like about this is to say, okay, Joe, we just talked about how important it is to migrate servers to Azure. Does it make sense to do this in Q3 or Q4? What I didn't say is, Joe, did you want to do that migration project? That's a yes, no question, right? What I said was, we've already established that this is important through our risk assessment. When does it make sense to do that? As you move it around and it updates the budget on the fly, Joe can decide when it makes sense for his company to do that. So that's the power of having the interactivity in a budget. One of my partners, I had breakfast with one of our partners at boot camp 2 weeks ago, and he said, well, you saved me, because one of our partners basically had outgrown us until we brought the budget to the table with Lifecycle Insights. And what he used to do is he would blow up an Excel spreadsheet of their budget. I kid you not, he brought in 16 pieces of paper, lined it out 4 by 4, and taped them together so that they could talk about their budget forecast. He said it felt very JV, and now that I can deliver it in Lifecycle Insights, it's a much more powerful conversation. So I've walked through the reports. Now I'm going to show you what we call Report Builder, which is like creating an easy button, but Staples won't let me use that name, I'm sure. I didn't even try. But the goal is for you to be able to add any of those components that I've already shown you. We also have the wildcard component of a text block if you wanted to take a screenshot of, what Huntress report showed, or some other tool that we don't have an integration with yet, or a Word doc as well. I just talked to a prospect earlier who was really excited about they can bring their own lawyer language into it for declination of services and have them sign off in it. But once you've built your template and said, these are the components I want, if you look at the right-hand side, you can see I've stacked all of the reports and I've saved them the way I want to see them. So 5-year budget, 12-year budget, 5-year budget, 12-month budget. Nobody wants a 12-year budget. The assessment comparison, etc. I can download this Word or PDF. You've already seen what that looks like. Most partners, however, present from our presentation mode. So this means you don't have to build a PowerPoint slide deck, right? We've already got the full report in the platform, and you can edit from here. So now when you make updates, you make notes, etc., everything's updated and saved in the platform and saved to Report Locker. I'm going to click into Scheduler to show what folks do with this. So Scheduler is where we allow you to manage your business review process. So I used to be a teacher, and we always said, what is inspected is what is expected. So many times, so many times I talk to folks and say, how often are you doing business reviews? And the answer is not as often as we should be. So if you're thinking, yep, that was my answer, I will say that this will help with the process. So for each client, you can go in and determine who should be quarterly, who should be monthly, who should be semi-annual, and who should be annual, or maybe even triannual. So part of the process is getting over sort of our own head noise that They're called quarterly business reviews, but not everybody, in fact, deserves, needs, or wants them quarterly, right? But to determine the appropriate cadence per client and then to actually put it on a view so I can see, can I do 8 business reviews in April? That's the question I need to ask myself, or do I need to kind of start to parse these out, et cetera? I can then start tracking how many are completed, how many do I have left to be delivered, how many are past due. And I can filter this by an account manager. I could say of my quarterlies, how many of them have been met, et cetera. And then when I dig into a business review, Brian, I think this will answer one of the questions that you asked. Can we kick off tickets from follow-up items? At the top of my business review, I can create a ticket that most folks use to track prep time for the business review itself, right? That impacts profitability. If it's going to take you 12 hours to prep for business review or 90 minutes, it's still time spent against that company, right? But at the bottom is where I can make individual follow-up notes and kick off a ticket to say, okay, they accepted this recommendation, go make that happen. A week from Sunday, we will also have the ability, and we start with manage and then auto task, then we'll follow up with our other integrations. You'll also be able to follow up with an opportunity instead of just a ticket. So that's been one of our top requests, and I just saw the preview of that this morning from our developers.
Real quick, do you have any Keep integration?
We don't have any Keep integration, and I think that is definitely a technology marketing toolkit piece, because that is the place that I hear it. Am I right about that? Is that something that
Yes, that's the CRM, and they have a scheduler as well and a campaign for scheduling these TBR type events, which we're currently using. I'm not sure if we would keep that or work towards this. Can you show how the scheduling actually happens and how it gets booked and calendared? Like, is there's an automated process for all that?
So we don't have an automated process for that, although that is on
Okay.
the roadmap. Yeah. So right now, I would say, since you've got things automated and Keep, it would make sense to keep it and Keep. How many times do we say those words in a row, right? But right now, this is just a view and scheduler. And then people, when they kick off notes after the fact, or sorry, kick off tickets, will have like a ticket type that you might have automation, but we don't have any automation behind that yet.
Okay, so we would have to find a way to, once we get one booked, add it to the system.
Yes, yes, yep. And there is an advantage to doing that piece, because it will on the dashboard then kind of keep track of that, of when you have upcoming business reviews, et cetera. The other piece is, so I'm gonna diverge from the VCIO side of the house for just a minute. So if you're looking at our pricing page, which is right here, everything that I showed you is on the left-hand side. So you can click up. Mark, can you put the pricing page link in the chat, please, so folks can click on it themselves? But the other reason to put it in Lifecycle Insights is we have a customer success module. And in the customer success module, we can filter by pieces and parts that are included in that side of the house. So if we know it was quarterly, monthly, et cetera, there's a lot of functionality that kind of lands on this tool. So here, top left, this is a segmentation chart. So this is your MRR versus number of tickets. So I can see my high value, high effort clients and my low value, low effort clients, and they're colored based on their health. So this can be scored many different ways. We can pull over a CSAT score. Account managers can manually enter a score as to whether or not the clients are happy, healthy, et cetera. But to be able to then look at these by who are my quarterly clients, et cetera, I think is important. The other reason that folks come to the customer success module is that for an individual client, they can build out their stack. So you build out your stack of services across all of your clients, and then say, based on my standard stack, right? So here are the tools I sell, and it's tools and services in my standard stack. This is what they're using for MDM. They're using Intune. I want them to use Adigy. So I've made this proposed recommendation in the VCIO side of the house, so I can derive alignment, MRR opportunity, and NRR opportunity, non-recurring revenue opportunity, to look at the stack alignment report across all customers. I was just on with someone 2 hours ago who said I should use this as marketing. Hey, I can replace my stupid spreadsheet now. So apparently they're not a fan of their spreadsheet where they're currently tracking this. And so they're looking forward to doing that inside of Lifecycle Insights. So that is, so Brian, that's interesting about Keep. I'll have to talk to our development team to see if there are any thoughts on adding additional integrations. Because
Yeah, like a scheduler, if you could integrate with the scheduler portion, at least for the particular contact record with API calls and find out what date it's scheduled for, that's going to hit the calendar. And if that can automate with at least from Keep into that tool, that could be extremely helpful. Or to work with maybe Appointment Core, that would be another way to go on the calendar entry itself.
we're trying to decide what's the best, do we look at an Outlook integration, that would kick off a calendar event, et cetera. So we've definitely started talking about that, what that might look like. But I definitely last week heard 2 weeks ago, multiple times Keep. So I assume that was a technology marketing kit.
And how there's a lot here, and kind of what's going through my head is, how long does it take me from signing up with you guys to being able to actually do this stuff and be effective with it?
Yep. So, and of course, results vary based on how clean your data is in your PSA. So right out of the gate, I will say, if you have duplicate assets in your PSA, there's going to be some cleanup involved in that and reconfiguring things to get that to look clean. I will tell you that we have the, you probably saw, there's a 30-day free trial for the up to 5 client package. We have a plan to get you from 0 to delivering a QBR to your first client in 30 days and all of the support to get you there if you agree to do the work, right? So, and what does that work look like? As soon as you sign up, it'll kick off and say, okay, go integrate your ConnectWise or your auto task. Here's a onboarding checklist in the platform if you're DIY folks. That takes about 20 minutes, takes about 50 minutes on our end to go do the warranty lookups and build the site, right? So it's auto at the end of the hour, you should have something to look at. But from there, there's some more work to do. So we have a few ways to do it. We do have that checklist in the platform. We have a weekly workshop it's a group onboarding. So if 30 people signed up in the past month, 30 people will be invited. If 60 people, 60 are invited, et cetera. But we have a 4-week cadence where we've got them recorded here. That's why I'm pulling this up. So we do week 1 is data cleanup. Week 2 is build a budget. Week 3 is all about assessments. Week 4 is projects. And if we have a 5th week that month, we do scheduler and report builder. If we don't have a 5th week, we squeeze it into the project week. So this is 30 minutes of canned content, 30 minutes of Q&A. So if you want to get one out the door in 30 days, then if you attended this and did the homework as follow-up, you would have your whole QBR process in place by the end of that month. We offer free one-on-one onboarding. I would say our typical partner signs up, plugs in their data, watches data cleanup, does the initial part of that, and then asks for a one-on-one call so we can help them with next steps and figuring out what your priorities are. And frankly, we've seen this over 1,000 times at this point, right? So we know a lot of the places where there are hiccups in data, like, hey, why am I getting duplicates in my PSA, blah, blah, blah. So once the data cleanup, you've gotten a good look at that, we're usually able to kind of accelerate beyond that to get you out the door.
I got 2 more questions too.
Sure.
I think maybe more, but do you have anything that tracks hours from the PSA for profitability of contracts versus values? Anything that integrates time involved?
We don't have that. We don't have that right now. Nope.
Is that on the roadmap at all for something like, I forgot the name of some of the software out there, but really just looking at contract profitability. I know there's a lot of tools out there that integrate and do that, but we don't have those today. And I'm curious what tool I need to get next for that.
So I don't know if you know this, but ScalePad also acquired Cognition 360, which does look at some of those metrics. So we suspect that the bigger picture will have Cognition 360 piece.
All right. And then my second question is, once we get this process dialed in, do you have any idea about the amount of prep time required to deliver an effective TBR? Like, what are you seeing with your partners?
Yeah, so one of our partners, Raj, who's more than happy to chat with folks, used to spend 12 hours once a year building a budget for his partners. He tells me that now, if you woke him up and said, you have a business review to do for this client, he said, give me 90 minutes and I can do the full thing. I can, update the assessment, make any recommendations, out the door, good to go. One of our other partners, he's the one that I mentioned, has a tier one, an intern that scores his assessment. He says between his intern and his project service manager, they prep the full business review. So he, as the owner, comes in 15 minutes ahead of time, confirms the recommendations, maybe adds a few more, delivers the business review in an hour, spends 15 minutes doing the follow-up notes and kicking off tickets. And that's his full investment in time, including delivery. Now, he has a team obviously prepping for it. But those are just two examples of how folks are using it. I hate saying it depends, but it really does depend on how much of the process you kind of have canned, et cetera. But we see it's saving hours in terms of having that budget. And the first time you do the budget, for sure, it is a longer process because you have to put all the pieces in place. But once it's up to date, that budget's always automated and up to date.
All the issues that
So at the moment, like we're using ScalePad, but we don't do the warranty master side. We're purely doing it to get our life cycle report.
Yep.
And then we use that for the TBRs. But at the moment, we're kind of doing a report from ConnectWise. Then we're doing a report from BrightGauge. Then we're doing a report from ScalePad. And then we're doing a report from Acronis on our backups.
Yep.
But I'm having to go through 4 different places and then I merge it into one PDF and I create that report.
Yeah.
So what I'm hoping is that I can take that and just go to one place and get everything.
That would be our hope too. That is definitely the problem we were solving for, right? We know it used to take 6 to 8 hours for my business partner to build his business review because he was cobbling together, industry term, right, from all of these different places. So we're aiming to get them all in one place so that you don't have to piecemeal it together, and it's a lot smoother and more strategic than just, right, pulling individual reports instead of like, let's align everything that we see to risk and recommendations so we can have a conversation about, our customers' business goals instead of just flux capacitors and Optiplex 750s.
So how do we get our account from ScalePad into life cycles?
So right now we're like I said, we just announced the 2 days before Technology Marketing Toolkit. So we don't have the integration built yet. So we don't have that data migration piece. You'd have to have 2 separate instances, but long-term that will be one place. Right now we would need to start with an integration to your PSA or IT documentation platform.
Okay. Oh, we'd like to speak to somebody to see how we can do that and obviously not pay double the cost.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a discount for folks that want both. So do you know who your PDM is at ScalePad? Okay, I will, I can find out and get you connected. I'm talking to them later. Other questions for me?
Do you have a full list of all the things that you integrate with?
We do. I'm going to pull up my integrations page. And if you want to screenshot that, and if not, I will screenshot it and send it out in the recording. Plus, and this is just the supplemental integration. This is not the original, like the primary integration again is the 4 PSAs, Manage, Autotask, Halo, Synchro, IT Glue, Hoodoo, and Ninja. But I'll send the list out in the follow-up.
Do you have an ETA for CrewWho integration?
Yeah, by the end of Q2. That one's already in works.
And what pulls from Augment? Do you know?
Yeah. So in Augment, we are looking at, so this is the user detail. So I can see every user, what application, the category, whether it's a, what status they're in, et cetera. And then we also have the app summary. So we can see all of the apps, again, approval status, the users and the visits, et cetera. So this looks a lot like what is in Augment, right? Just sort of formatted lifecycle way so that the report comes out nice and smooth.
Did I miss that? Is there anything about MFA enforcement for M365 as part of this tool?
So for MFA, depending on how you have it set in our user list, we can, like folks often ask, who's not in ConnectWise, who's in Microsoft, right? And you can see if MFA is disabled. It doesn't show enforced. The Graph API currently only shows enabled or disabled. So as soon as they update the Graph API, then we'll update the reporting as well, because we know that's what folks want. The other thing for the user list that I didn't mention, but I think is useful here, is you can import users via CSV. We match on primary email. So if you had 4 other tools and you wanted to know, like, who in here is using Dropbox, who in here is using, G Suite, et cetera, you can import by CSV and we'll still do that red-green match for them. So you can see who's in the different tools. So again, if you had a list of MFA, for example, in another platform, you could grab that. Matt, I'm putting the answer to the pricing in the chat right now. You can just click on that link.
So, and where is this pulling this page here for user list? Where is it pulling all the Microsoft stuff from?
Their API. So you would have to put in, you could either do delegated admin credentials or direct configuration if you don't have delegated admin.
Okay, so it's going directly to Microsoft to pull this data?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if we don't have more questions, I will let everybody run. I will send out the recording of this as soon as it's done processing. I will also send the list of integrations along with it, as well as the link to the sign up page. And if anybody else, if you have any more questions along the way or want a one-on-one chat, just reply and we'll get you on a call. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you.